caught wife cheating with coworkers, served divorce papers, got her fired, and crushed her in court. I never expected my marriage to end because of a work conference. But that is exactly what happened. My wife, Julia, always claimed she was dedicated to her career. I trusted her, never questioning the long hours or late-night meetings. Until one day, an anonymous message shattered everything. It contained a video, grainy but clear enough to see Julia intimately involved with one of her coworkers. My stomach dropped. The sender? A disgruntled colleague who had seen too much and decided I deserved the truth. I needed proof. I dug deeper, only to uncover an entire web of lies. Multiple affairs, hidden meetups, and a reputation at work that was anything but professional. I realized my wife was not the person I thought she was. That was when I decided I would not just leave her. I would make sure she faced real consequences. Julia and I had been married for 7 years. We met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions, and built a life together. She had always been ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder with relentless determination. I admired that about her. I thought her dedication to work was for our future. I had a stable job in IT, which allowed me to work from home. This meant I handled most of the household responsibilities while Julia focused on her career. She often traveled for work, attending conferences and networking events. I never thought twice about it. Why would I? Trust was the foundation of our marriage. But looking back, the signs had been there. The sudden need to stay at hotels even when the conference was in our city. The late-night work emergencies. The way she guarded her phone more than ever before. At the time, I dismissed my concerns as paranoia. Then, one day, an anonymous email appeared in my inbox. It contained a short message: "You deserve to know the truth about Julia." Attached was a video clip. My heart pounded as I clicked play. There she was, my wife, wrapped around another man in a hotel bar, their chemistry unmistakable. My hands shook. I played the video again, hoping I had misinterpreted. I had not. That was when I decided I needed to know everything. Julia worked for a well-known marketing firm. Her office culture thrived on networking, happy hours, and weekend retreats. I had always assumed these were just professional obligations. But after receiving that email, I started questioning everything. The anonymous sender mentioned that Julia was not just involved with one coworker, there were multiple. I needed solid proof before confronting her. So, I started investigating. I checked our shared bank account. There were frequent charges for expensive dinners, hotel stays, and gifts, none of which I had received. I accessed our phone records. Julia had been exchanging thousands of texts with an unknown number. My next move was checking her work laptop when she left it at home one evening. My hands trembled as I navigated through her emails. That was when I found them: flirty messages, inside jokes, and even meeting confirmations at various hotels. This was no misunderstanding. It was betrayal. The moment I uncovered the extent of Julia's betrayal, a deep sense of numbness settled over me. This was not just a one-time mistake. This was a pattern. A deliberate, ongoing deception. But I was not going to let emotions cloud my judgment. If she thought she could make a fool out of me, she was sorely mistaken. I needed to gather irrefutable evidence before taking action. Confronting her without solid proof would only give her a chance to lie her way out. So, I devised a plan. Julia had a weekend conference coming up. She had mentioned it weeks ago, brushing it off as just another networking event. But now, I knew better. I checked our shared calendar and noted the hotel she had booked. Then, I cross-referenced it with her emails and texts. She had been exchanging messages with 2 coworkers, Mark and Eric, about meeting up at the very same hotel. The conversation made it clear. This was not a business trip. So, I did what any betrayed spouse with access to technology would do. I set up surveillance. First, I placed a small tracking device in her car. It was discreet, tucked neatly under the seat where she would never think to look. Next, I installed a keylogger on her work laptop, ensuring that any messages she sent would be recorded. Lastly, I reached out to the hotel. Posing as Julia's assistant, I requested that the hotel send all confirmation emails to our shared address. They complied without hesitation. Now, all I had to do was wait. On the day of her trip, Julia kissed me goodbye as if nothing was wrong. She even told me she loved me. The sheer audacity of it made my stomach turn. As soon as she left, I checked the tracker. She was headed straight for the hotel. No detours. No last-minute stops. This was pre-planned, orchestrated deception. Once she checked in, I drove to the hotel myself. I had already booked a room under a fake name, ensuring that I could move around without suspicion. I did not have to wait long. Within an hour, Julia and her 2 coworkers arrived at the bar. I positioned myself at a distance, recording every interaction. The way she leaned into Mark. The way she laughed at Eric's jokes while touching his arm. The way they whispered, thinking no one else could hear. Then, they went upstairs, together. I followed at a safe distance, watching as they disappeared into a room. That was it. The final confirmation. I had everything I needed. With my phone still recording, I approached the hotel front desk. Flashing a fabricated business ID, I told the receptionist I was doing an internal security audit. I claimed we had reason to believe that an unauthorized guest had checked into one of the rooms. The receptionist hesitated, but with a little persuasion and some quick thinking, I managed to get access to the room number. Now, it was time for the final step. Using my phone, I called Julia. She answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful, pretending she was at a work event. I kept my voice calm. "Hey, just checking in. How is the conference?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second before replying, "Oh, it is great. Just finished a workshop and about to grab dinner with some colleagues." But I was staring at the door she had just entered. "That sounds nice," I said, suppressing my anger. "Send me a picture of your badge." Another pause. I left it in my room. I will send one later." I smiled to myself. "No need. I will just come up and get it myself." Before she could respond, I ended the call. Then I knocked on the door. Silence. Then a flurry of movement inside. Panic. Whispered voices. I knocked again, harder this time. When the door finally opened, Julia stood there, eyes wide with terror. Behind her, Mark and Eric scrambled to grab their clothes. The look on her face was priceless. "Well," I said, holding up my phone. "I guess this is what you meant by work meetings?" She stammered, reaching for excuses, but it was too late. I turned and walked away, ignoring her desperate pleas. I had bigger plans for her. Walking away from Julia's hotel room was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. But this was far from over. Simply catching her in the act was not enough. I wanted to make sure she felt the full weight of her actions. The moment I got home, I set everything into motion. I already had the evidence, videos, hotel receipts, and the messages from her laptop. But I needed to ensure that I came out of this divorce unscathed while making sure Julia suffered the consequences of her betrayal. First, I contacted my lawyer, who was more than happy to take on the case. With the evidence I provided, we had grounds for infidelity, which meant that Julia would have no claim to alimony. Since the house was in my name before our marriage, she had no right to it either. Next, I informed my bank to separate our finances immediately. Julia had access to our joint account, but I had already transferred most of the funds into my personal account, leaving just enough in the joint one to ensure she did not get suspicious. Then, I made sure to notify her employer. Julia worked at a corporate firm that had strict policies about inter-office relationships, especially affairs between coworkers. With her position, she was expected to uphold professionalism, and breaking that code could result in termination. I sent an anonymous email to her HR department, attaching some of the messages I had retrieved from her laptop, messages that proved she had been engaging in inappropriate conduct with Mark and Eric. It did not take long for the news to spread. Within days, Julia was called in for an urgent meeting. I heard through mutual friends that she had been blindsided. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her bosses were not impressed. By the end of the week, Julia was unemployed. Julia finally realized the extent of what was happening when she received the divorce papers. That was when she stormed into our house, my house, demanding an explanation. "You are divorcing me?" she screamed, her face red with fury. "You are ruining my life over a mistake?" I remained calm. "A mistake?" I scoffed. "Julia, you did not just cheat once. You carried on an affair for months. You lied to my face. And you expected me to just accept it." She tried to cry, but I could see the anger in her eyes. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling." "No, you can go to counseling," I interrupted. "I am done." Her voice turned venomous. "You cannot just kick me out. I have rights." I smiled, pulling out the paperwork. "Actually, you have no rights to this house. It was mine before we got married, and since you cheated, you are not getting a dime from me in the divorce." The look on her face was priceless. "You cannot do this to me," she shrieked. "I already did." She lunged at me, but I stepped back. I was not about to let her theatrics affect me. Instead, I handed her a box containing her essentials, her phone, her purse, and the divorce papers. "Pack the rest of your things and leave," I said coldly. "You are no longer welcome here." Julia stood there, shaking with rage, but she had no choice. She was out of options. As she walked out, she turned back with one last attempt at manipulation. "You will regret this." I smirked. I doubt it. She had lost everything, her marriage, her home, and her job. But I was not done yet. With Julia out of my house, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. But I knew that just because she was gone did not mean she would stay out of my life completely. She was the kind of person who would fight to regain some control, and I was prepared for that. Julia tried to drag out the divorce proceedings, probably hoping I would give in and offer her some sort of financial settlement. But my lawyer made sure that did not happen. The evidence of her infidelity was airtight, and the judge had no sympathy for her. She had initially tried to argue for a share of my assets, but with the prenuptial agreement in place and proof of her cheating, she had no legal standing. The moment the divorce was finalized, I felt like I had been freed from a prison I had not even realized I was in. With no job and no place to stay, Julia's life began to fall apart rapidly. She tried reaching out to mutual friends, but most of them had already taken my side after hearing the truth. She also tried staying with her affair partners, but that did not work out the way she expected. Mark, one of the men she had cheated with, ghosted her the moment he realized she was no longer married and financially secure. He had no interest in her beyond their affair, and without the thrill of sneaking around, she was no longer exciting to him. Eric, the other guy, was in just as much trouble as she was. Since he had also been caught in the scandal at work, he was fired shortly after Julia. The last I heard, she was staying with a distant relative, struggling to find a new job, and bitter about how everything had turned out. She had thought she could betray me and still come out on top. She had been wrong. As for me, my life improved in ways I never imagined. Without Julia's constant lies and manipulation weighing me down, I focused on myself. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. I started taking care of my health, traveling, and embracing my newfound freedom. A year later, I met someone new. Unlike Julia, she was honest, kind, and supportive. She knew my past but never used it against me. Being with her felt effortless, like a fresh start I had desperately needed. One day, while walking through the city, I spotted Julia from a distance. She looked worn out, like life had drained her. For a moment, she caught my gaze. I could see the regret in her eyes. She had lost everything. I just gave her a nod and kept walking. Some people learn their lessons the hard way. And Julia? She learned hers when it was far too late. And that is how betrayal backfired on my cheating wife. What do you think? Was I too harsh, or did she deserve what she got? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, make sure to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon to stay updated with more shocking tales. And do not forget to share this video with your friends.